Hello, my name is Michelle Hayek, and I will present research methods in applied linguistics regarding grammar. The agenda follows the points that are presented in the slide. The description of the grammatical area of EFL, according to the definitions from Oxford Languages, grammar is the whole system and structure of language in general. Strick defines it as building blocks in the structure of knowledge to form and use English correctly. Grammar can be taught using different approaches. The standard grammar, which is the traditional set of rules for English usage, casual grammar, which is the way in which people talk every day, systemic functional grammar, which according to Halliday is the resource for making meanings. And in order to become skilled and an active user of a language, understanding grammar is a necessity. Using Zwick words, the rules of grammar for a language learner are like the rules of the road for a driver. In order to be able to drive properly and maneuver with other drivers, you have to know the rules that everyone goes by. So following the rules of grammar guarantees users the proper interaction in that language. To learn the grammatical rules and communicate in the target language, it is imperative to practice. According to the theoretical framework of the grammatical area of ESL, understanding grammar consists of acquiring two types of knowledge, implicit and explicit. Explicit knowledge of grammar involves the awareness of rules and conventions of use of the language. Implicit grammar knowledge comes as the result of comprehension, production, and fluency of communication in the second language. It is then the implicit knowledge that determines the real knowledge of the language. To assess grammatical knowledge, self-conscious exercises and extended oral and written production must be considered. In the first case, the response is straightforward and so is the scoring. However, in the second case, accuracy and syntactic complexity are part of the procedure of scoring. One of the ways in which oral and written productions can be assessed is by a qualitative approach, which provides a rating scale with specific categories describing the grammatical performance, and quantitative approach, which will measure the error identified in terms of a T-unit or the use of a grammatical structure. The argument about grammar in the second language comes from determining whether it should be taught explicitly, presenting and explaining a set of grammatical rules, but not centered on practice. Thus, there are three positions that explore the possibility of explicit knowledge becoming implicit knowledge, and they are a zero position, a focus on forms, and a focus on form. Paltridge, Fakiri, and Ake 2018 state that different studies on how to teach grammar focus on which communicative task and task conditions would be more effective in the learning process. In this order of ideas, there are studies that are oriented to the oral production and others to the written production. Research on how to teach grammar, feedback on errors. There is the corrective feedback on oral production that is divided into implicit, that comes as a clarification request, and explicit, that open correction of the error. The corrective feedback on written production includes the indirect feedback, editing symbols in the margin, and the direct feedback, underlining the error, indicating its type, and writing the correct version above the incorrect one. Based on the studies and research articles in context, we can see that the three studies follow the same structure: abstract, introduction, like their literature review, the methodology, the findings, results, a discussion, conclusion, implications, and the references. Now, regarding the research method, the first study, exploring flipped learning approach in teaching grammar for ESL student, adopted a quantitative method involving a written questionnaire for data collection and analysis. And to achieve the purpose, the researchers administered a questionnaire consisting of 11 5-level Likert scale items and 3 open-ended written questions at the end. The second study, transfer of grammatical knowledge into ESL writing, adopted a quantitative method involving a pre-study questionnaire, a pre-writing task, worksheets, post-writing task, and post-study questionnaire for data collection and analysis. And the third study, competence of ESL students in grammatical structure, is a descriptive survey aimed at establishing the linguistic competence level, and it adopted a quantitative method. The research instrument comprises 30 grammatical test items. Frequency and percentage statistics and extracts from students' answer scripts are employed to analyze the data purposively to determine their linguistic competence in grammatical item. An item in which the entire subject scores less than 50% is discriminated as a difficult one. The research articles in context and their major findings. In the first one about the flipped learning approach, the results showed that the majority of the students enjoys flipped learning more than traditional classroom. And this sheds some light on the delivery of instruction in education of the 21st century. The study also showed an example of how to implement a flipped classroom. And the flipped classroom can indeed create rich and meaningful learning activities. Students no longer need lessons that comprised of structures and materials. The second study, the transfer of grammatical knowledge into ESL writing, confirms that students are able to transfer the simple grammar structures they learned into their writing. The increase in instruction time and practice in this course may facilitate the transfer of language learning to a great extent in students' writing. It was observed that 5 pedagogical factors foster the transfer of language, and they are form-focused instruction, sequence of worksheet, conscious noticing of errors, application of transfer, and motivation. The third study, competence of ESL students in grammatical structure, has shown that some learners of English as a second language lack knowledge of grammatical items which are rudimental to standard use. The deficient use of the identified linguistic elements causes poor written English, which itself partly accounts for the recorded low performance in the school. So, based on these 3 studies, there are several considerations. Number 1, education in today's world is more about adapting to a changing world. Number 2, education is now centered in the students. 3, education of the 21st century is supported on the ability to learn. 4, grammar will always be a pillar in ESL teaching. 5, knowing, learning, and understanding the grammatical rules and structure are basic elements for communication and linguistic interaction. 6, the studies presented are proof that poor grammar comprehension leads to poor performance and production of the language, both written and oral. 7, these studies show how to approach the correction of grammar mistakes to address the proper use and better comprehension of how the language works. And 8, the studies in this section present different options for teaching grammar in a successful manner, one in which the students can actually learn and enjoy the process. These are the list the references I used, and if you would like to further the findings and what I presented here, this is where you can find them. Thank you very much for your attention, and this is my contact information. Bye for now.